Welcome back to English Talk Host, the podcast where we explore big ideas and the language used to express them.
That's right. And today we're shifting our focus from language itself to the architecture of thought behind groundbreaking innovation. We're talking about mental models.
It's a fascinating topic. We're going to deconstruct the operating system of a mind that is fundamentally reshaping our world. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to think on a completely different level? They don't just solve problems, they sort of redefine them.
Yeah, it's like their mental architecture is just built differently. They bypass the usual constraints.
Exactly. They push past what most of us think is even possible. Today, we're doing a deep dive into someone who really embodies this. Elon Musk, a prime example.
Definitely. And our big question isn't just what he achieves, although that's obviously impressive, it's how. How does he approach things so, well, fundamentally differently?
Right. What's the underlying mechanism? We've dug into interviews, biographies, blog series, lots of sources to really unpack his core mental models, his thinking habits.
The goal here isn't hero worship, though. It's important to state that up front.
Absolutely. We're trying to understand the framework, the cognitive toolkit.
You can say our mission today is basically to give you a shortcut. Understand the surprising facts, practical lessons from his way of thinking, so you can maybe apply some of these strategies yourself.
And what's striking in the sources, is the consistency. You see this pattern connecting his philosophy, his models to his actions across SpaceX, Tesla, all of it. It's not just random success. There's a method. There appears to be, yes. We're looking at the mechanics of a thought process, not just celebrating the outcomes.
Okay, great distinction. So let's dive into the foundation, that first big concept everyone talks about, first principles thinking.
Yes, the cornerstone. We hear the term a lot, but what does it really mean in practice? Most of us work by analogy. This problem is like that other one, so let's try a similar fact.
Right, that's the standard approach, copying what works or what seems to work. But first principles, that's about breaking it all down to the fundamental truth, the things you know are true, like physics.
Exactly. It's what he calls the physics approach. You boil it down until you're left with only the axioms, the fundamental laws. You ask, what are the laws that absolutely cannot be broken?
Okay, let's unpack this. How often do you, listening right now, actually start from scratch like that? From the absolute basics?
It's rare, isn't it? Because it's hard work. Think about rockets, for instance. Ashley Vance's biography covers this well. The cost was astronomical.
Right, established industry prices.
Musk didn't just accept that. He didn't ask, how do we make existing rockets cheaper? He asked, what are rockets made of? Like, what are the raw material costs? Aluminum, titanium, carbon fiber. What does this actually cost on the commodity markets? What's the processing cost?
So literally breaking the rocket down to its atoms almost. Pretty much. It's about identifying the irreducible elements and their real costs, not the cost built up through layers of suppliers and assumptions and, frankly, inefficiency.
That's a completely different way of looking at cost. Not just trimming fat, but questioning the skeleton itself.
It's intellectual demolition, really, questioning assumptions everyone else takes for granted. And that's not just for design, it's for every cost, every process.
But, okay, realistically, isn't that incredibly time-consuming? Does it ever slow things down too much?
That's the trade-off. It absolutely can be slower up front. It demands huge intellectual effort, deep knowledge in multiple fields, and, frankly, a lot of persistence.
Pushing back against that's how it's always been done.
Constantly. You see it in the stories from early space, like in the Kevin Rose interviews or his TED Talks. He was always challenging suppliers, engineers, saying, your assumption about this cost or This limitation? Is it a law of physics or just something you've accepted?
That takes a certain kind of, well, stubbornness or
Conviction, depending on your perspective. But yes, it requires pushing back hard against inertia.
Okay, so first principles helps you break down the current reality, but then what?
Well, once you understand the fundamentals, you don't just solve the immediate problem. You ask, what's the ultimate goal? What future are we trying to build with this understanding?
And that leads to the next big idea.
Right, exactly. It connects directly to future back thinking.
Right. And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Future back thinking, it's not about planning for next quarter or even next year.
Not at all. It's decades.
Imagine planning for, say, a colony on Mars or a totally sustainable energy grid for the whole planet. You start with that future state,
The desired end point.
and then you work backward, step by step. What needs to happen now to make that future possible? What's the sequence? It completely flips conventional planning on its head. Most companies plan forward.
Incrementally.
Yeah. What can we achieve next year based on where we are now?
This is the opposite. Here's the future we must achieve. Now, what are the absolute necessary steps, technologies, breakthroughs needed to get there from today?
That's incredibly ambitious. How do you even start with something that big? Like Mars.
Well, you look at his public plans like the SpaceX Mars vision or the Tesla Master Plan Parts 1 and 2. They are the future back thinking laid bare.
They're not just mission statements, they're roadmaps.
Exactly. Blueprints for a desired future. The original Tesla plan wasn't just, let's build an electric car. It was step 1, build a high-price, low-volume sports car to prove the tech, and fund step 2,
Which was the more affordable sedan.
right, to reach mass market. Then step 3, integrate that with solar power and battery storage. It was all reverse engineered from the final goal, accelerating sustainable energy.
So first principles demolishes the present assumptions, and future back defines the destination and the path.
It's a really powerful combination. One clears the ground, the other sets the trajectory.
Okay, but these mental models, they need fuel, right? They don't operate in a vacuum. This brings us to his thinking habits and how he acquires knowledge.
The engine behind the models.
Let's start with something almost legendary. His reading obsession.
Yeah, the stories are pretty wild.
The detail, often cited like in the Way But Why blog series, is reading maybe 2 books a day growing up. Can you even imagine that?
It's hard to fathom the sheer volume, but it's not just the quantity, it's the breadth.
Right, science fiction, engineering textbooks, physics, history, philosophy, it's all over the map.
And the key seems to be how he integrated it all. He wasn't just storing facts in different boxes.
Can you imagine the breadth of knowledge that builds? How interconnected it must all become in his head?
That connection is vital. It leads directly into what we call systems thinking.
Okay, explain that. How does the reading feed into systems thinking?
Well, because he's pulling knowledge from so many different domains, physics, AI, economics, manufacturing. He starts to see how they interconnect. He sees the whole system, not just the isolated parts.
Like how things influence each other?
Precisely, yeah. Take the Tesla example again. It's not just a car company.
No, it's batteries, right? Batteries for grid storage for homes,
Solar panels.
solar panels for generation, software, charging networks.
Exactly. Cars plus batteries plus solar plus software in one integrated ecosystem. That synergy only comes from seeing how disparate pieces can fit together into a larger, more powerful whole.
What's fascinating here is how diverse knowledge isn't siloed but actively connected. He's building bridges between disciplines.
Which most organizations don't do effectively. They stay in their lanes.
Okay, but practically speaking, how do you avoid just drowning in information if you're reading that much across so many fields? How do you not get overwhelmed or, paralyzed?
That's a great question. I think
The sources suggest it's not passive consumption. He's actively processing it, constantly filtering it through those core mental models we talked about.
So through first principles and future back.
Yeah, he's asking, what are the fundamental principles here? How does this connect to the future I'm trying to build? Where are the leverage points?
So it's active integration, not just absorption.
Exactly. It's less about memorizing everything and more about understanding the core mechanics and how systems interact. That's how you manage the complexity, I think.
That makes sense. And this integrated thinking seems to connect to another key habit, probabilistic thinking.
Thinking in terms of odds, not certainties.
Right.
Making decisions based on the probability of different outcomes rather than waiting for absolute proofs or zero risk, which is crucial